I'm Cole Hartman, and I've got 40 acres of stubborn Texas grass that refuses to be anything but itself, just outside this shiny subdivision called Pine Ridge Estates. Last month, 3 construction trucks rolled over my pasture like they knew my land better than I did. And there in the middle of my field stood a woman in a crystal-studded hard hat, clipboard raised like a scepter, pointing at my horse barn and yelling that it would make a perfect place for tennis courts and a juice bar. Yeah, that happened. My horses were snorting and dancing sideways, and I'm thinking, either I overslept through the apocalypse or someone around here has lost their mind. I eased my phone out, gave it 3 quick taps, and started walking to my truck. I knew before I reached the tailgate this had sprinted past misunderstanding into full-blown trespass. The woman, Priscilla Hargrove, Pine Ridge HOA president, was barking orders over the diesel engines like she was running a fire drill, waving a stack of papers that fluttered in the breeze like they couldn't believe what they were part of. She called my pasture underutilized community space, which, in case you're wondering, is suburban for I want it, so it's ours. Let me back up a sec. This ranch has been in my family since 1947. My granddad bought it with a handshake and a pocket full of war pay, built a barn with his brothers, and drew the fences with his own sweat. Long before the cookie-cutter roofs and regulation mailboxes, this place had its own heartbeat, and I can still hear it if the wind's right. 8 years ago, the developers rolled in, raised some streets, and Pine Ridge bloomed. 2-car garages aligned like parade floats. Found the HOA, and rose through it like a vine finds a fence. Our first meeting? She came to my gate with a welcome basket that smelled like vanilla hand soap and a binder of rules thick enough to stop a bullet. She told me the neighborhood had standards, and I told her my land wasn't the neighborhood. She blinked, like a GPS that refused to recalculate, then said since we shared a boundary, I must be subject to their regulations. I pointed at the county road and suggested she drive there and ask the clerk about it, which she did not appreciate. After that, I started finding violation notices stuffed in my rural mailbox. My barn was the wrong color, my fence too tall, my roosters keeping a schedule incompatible with suburban brunch. I ignored them, put up cameras, and sent a cease and desist through my attorney that said, in legal font, knock it off. Things calmed for about a minute. Then I noticed, but the stakes returned, same corners, same lines, same early hour. My trail cam caught the truth at 5 a.m. Priscilla in leggings and a neon vest with 2 young guys in polos. Tapping coffee that tastes like cardboard, and a semicircle of retirees who treat bylaws like scripture. Who's been there since breathing was invented? Whether an HOA could annex private ranch land with a show of hands and a bake sale. She laughed and printed certified copies of everything as if she knew the next chapter would start with heavy machinery. Which it did. Monday morning, my dawn coffee shook in the mug as an excavator chewed a hole in my north pasture. A concrete truck waited like a bull at the gate. Workers were unloading rebar. Luke, former Marine, runs security. Carter, retired sheriff's deputy who still has that stare that makes grown men check their speed, even on foot. Jesse, my youngest brother, a rancher whose silence weighs as much as a tractor. I also called the actual sheriff's office and my attorney. Dispatch said a unit was tied up, but headed my way. 20 minutes later, my brothers rolled in. We weren't posturing. We were just 4 large men in scuffed boots and sun-bleached hats with lawful sidearms, and the kind of calm that means we're not joking. Luke walked up to the foreman and, in a voice that sounded like a handshake, explained criminal trespass and liability. Carter started photographing plates and Vince, asking for company details like a census taker with a camera. Jesse folded his arms and looked at Priscilla like a storm looks at a lawn chair. The crew boss called his boss, and whatever the boss said, it ended with, pack it up. The excavator shut down, the diesel grumble faded, and Priscilla lost the thread. She started yelling about hostile work environments and calling 911. And then the tears came, mascara tracing dark commas down her cheeks. She called us bullies. We stood there on my dirt and let the dust speak for us. 10 minutes after her Lexus fishtailed out, Deputy Morales rolled up. He knows my family. You grow up in a county like ours. You either know folks or you pretend to. I handed him the fake permit, the trail cam stills, and the certified records, and he did that tired headshake reserved for people who try government cosplay. He suggested I file a complaint for trespass and vandalism. I did, that afternoon. My lawyer, Vivian, smiled like a fox discovering an unlocked henhouse and drafted a demand letter that sang. 2 days later, I got a shaky call from the HOA treasurer, a soft-spoken accountant named Harold Kemp who sounded like he'd just discovered a second set of books in his sock drawer. He said the board didn't know about any of this, that Priscilla had hired the crew by reclassifying funds as common area maintenance, and that an emergency meeting was happening that night. Here's the twist I didn't see coming. Turns out I had an ally in Pine Ridge, a neighbor named Mrs. Delgado, the widow on the corner with roses that make the whole street smell like April, had filmed parts of a planning chat Priscilla held in her kitchen. You can hear Priscilla saying, plain as sunrise, that she'd take the pasture first and ask the county later, while passing around mock-ups of pickleball courts like church bulletins. Mrs. Delgado sent that clip to me and, apparently, to half the neighborhood. The emergency board meeting was standing room only. I didn't go. I prefer my entertainment honest, but Harold called afterward sounding like a man who'd seen the ocean for the first time. They had found reimbursements with no invoices. Shell memos that looked like they were written by a child faking a permission slip, and a personal Venmo trail that connected HOA funds to consulting lunches. By sunrise the next day, the construction company had invoiced Pine Ridge $8,000 for wasted equipment time. My lawyer had mailed a $15,000 damages demand for the excavation and the horse dress. And the county slapped Priscilla with citations for filing false documents and impersonating a public authority. The board voted her out so fast the chair barely cooled. Priscilla hired a defense lawyer with a billboard smile who tried to argue honest mistake about property lines, like the stakes hammered in at 5 a.m. were sleepwalking. Court was austere. And I get it. Every town dreams, but dreams don't bulldoze deeds. When the verdict came, it was steady, not cruel. Multiple counts. 2 years probation. Community service, 30 hours. Which felt poetic. And $35,000 in fines and restitution, payable like a lesson. When the judge finished, Priscilla sagged in her chair, whispering that she'd only tried to improve things, and I believed she believed that, which might be the saddest part. A dull square of earth where grass used to sway, and my horses stood at the fence, ears forward, calm again. I saddled my mare and took a slow ride along the line where my land brushes Pine Ridge. The roofs lined up like chess pieces in the late sun, sprinklers ticking, someone's radio floating out a summer song. I thought about how the word community can feel like a campfire when it's honest and like a spotlight when it's not. How rules can keep us neighbors or turn us into rivals. How a fence is both a boundary and a handshake depending on which side of your heart you're standing on. So here's how it ended that day, cinematically speaking. The sun was dropping behind the oaks. The sign promising a recreation complex leaned busted against the weeds. My mare's breath curled white in the cooling air, and the evidence bag crinkled when I shifted in the saddle. Satisfying. What happens the next time somebody decides your underutilized space would look better with their dream built on top? You know what I mean. Tell me what you think. Did I stand my ground the right way? Or did I go too far showing up the way we did? Should a community's vision ever outrun a person's deed? And if you've ever dealt with an HOA overreach or a boundary fight, where do you draw your line? Drop your take. Right, wrong.